So welcome back to Margot Bell Designs. Here is how to make a sleep mask. First we have already ironed on our wadding before we cut out our pink self fabric, and we've ironed on our Varline before we cut out our lining fabric. Everything's been pre-washed, ready to go. First we have to match up our notches all the way around our pattern pieces so that the piece is going to sit straight. There's 4 notches on your pattern piece, and we need all 4 of them to be balanced and matching. Then we're just going to stitch probably about 3 to 5 mils from the very edge of your mask all the way around the pattern piece. Just make sure that it's still matching up as you stitch around it. And then the notches to the side of the mask, we're going to attach our 6mm elastic. So just stitch straight over where you've already stitched, back tack all the way over and then back to make sure that it's staying in place. Then over to the other side, make sure there's no twists or turns in it. Straight across the back of the lining, we'll do the same. Stitch straight over that stitching line. Needs to be quite close to the edge because we're going to put the bind around the outside. Fold over the top edge of your binding about 1 centimetre over the top of where you've got your elastic, and then we've just got to move the binding gently around the curve, roughly about 5 mils in from the side. We're going to shape it around the edge about 3 centimetres, and then we're going to start with the back tack from about that 3 centimetre point. We need to leave an opening so that we can stitch it together later. We're going to sew about 5 mils in from the edge, making sure that we're covering the stitching from underneath. When you get around to the other side, probably 3 to 5 centimetres away from that initial 1 centimetre turnover, back tack. So work it out with your fingers, hold it in the right spots, and then 1 centimetre past where that elastic is, put a little notch in, and then we need to cut that at right angles across the bind, and we're going to have a 1 centimetre seam allowance. Make sure you tuck your elastic in, put your edges together, and then we're going to stitch a 1 centimetre seam allowance, back tack at each end, and this is going to neaten off our bind. Open up your seam and fold it flat. You can go over it with your fingernail, which usually helps to press it out. Then we're going to back tack from where we left off, our still 5 mils in around our edge, back tack all the way around to the other side, then finish with the back tack over where you back tacked before. Neaten off any rough edges and turn the bind to the right side of your mask. What we need to do is, we could possibly do a stay stitch around the outside of the pink, holding the seam towards the front of the mask, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to make sure that everything's sitting smooth and folding towards the front, and that our elastic's sitting to the back. We're going to fold it over probably about 1 centimetre and then fold it down so it's just covering the stitching that is around the right side of our mask. Okay, sometimes you might need to press this so that it's in the right place, or you can just work your way around the piece and fold it so that it's ready for edge stitching. Here you can see our seam measures up to the same point where our elastic is. So we're going to fold the bind over and edge stitch very close to the edge, inside edge of our bind. We need to be mindful of the back so that we're not going into the black, we're going to stay in the pink. So watch you not getting that elastic in it. So ideally, all of our pink should stay in the pink and not be in the black. I think we finally got it. And you can give it a press. And we are ready. Beautiful. An eye mask. Ready to go. Sleep mask number 2 is exactly the same sleep mask, except we're going to bag out the edges instead of putting a bind around the outside. Here's the instructions. So we've got right sides together. Make sure your notches match up in the middle. Just going to start from the bump, roughly. Very small seam allowance. Back tack at the start. Slot your elastic in where your notch sits. Then we need to back tack over the elastic area to ensure that it's not going to come undone. Then around the top of the mask, we're going to back tack and stop and reinforce our elastic on the other side. Exactly where the notch is, we'll go forward, back tack, and then over, back tack to keep it in place. Then pop it all back together, start from that back tack again when you're starting off, and then we'll work our way around the curve until we get to about 10 centimetres or so from where we started. Trim every probably centimetre or so we get a nice curve when we bag it out. It's not on your elastic. This is where you need really sharp snips. Where there's not too much curve, along there you don't need to trim. Just where it starts getting curvy, make sure you don't snip through your stitching. Then we're going to turn it in the right way. So just what we want to do now is pin. Just go in and we're just going to smooth around the curve. Make it a nice smooth edge. Just the top. Just watch that you don't poke a hole in it. Then we're going to close up this section. Just going to fold it over our 5mm. Fold this back 5mm and stitch it up. So we only need to stitch over there. You can go all the way around if you want. There we have one finished bagged out mask number 2. Keep it handy, never know when you're going to need it. See you next week, so enjoy. What's that? You're disturbing me. That's it, I've had enough. It's sleep time for me.